What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Paint Society, the channel where the learning doesn't stop when the video ends. Today in this episode, we're going to show you how to become a better painter in your own home garage. We have back here our Project Honda Civic, and we'll be attacking the roof. Now, we'll see in many other episodes that we're doing panel by panel, testing out conventional and unconventional ways of painting. Now, let's get you up to speed of how we got to this point on the roof. Now, if we go back in time when we took a look at this roof, we would notice that it had no clear coat on it. So we went ahead and sanded it all down, and then we used East Coat's OptiFlow epoxy primer to kind of seal it in and make sure we had a good foundation, protecting any burn-throughs to metal if we had them. We then sanded that down and followed it up with our urethane primer to give us a little bit of a build. At that point, we sanded it down with a 320 to 400, and then we let it sit for a little bit. Once we were ready to start back on our project, we took Super Clean's foaming degreaser to make sure that we had it nice and clean before we started sanding on it again. We cleaned it off, and then we took our K600 with our block and we sanded it down and refined it just a little bit more for our paint job. Now from there, we use our Bulldog Prep and Clean, and we use a gray scuff pad. And what this does is it refined it just a little bit more, and it cleaned in all the areas that we couldn't get to with a regular sanding block. Now at that point, it was time to clean out the garage. We took our blower and we blew out the whole entire garage and made sure there wasn't any sort of debris left on the garage. We then took our floor and we used a plastic painting sheet and covered the whole floor from side to side to make sure that we locked down anything that we might have missed. At that point, we were ready to rope off our molding by taking some 1/4-inch rope and just stuffing it underneath our black molding that was overlapping our roof. This enabled the molding to lift up so we can get paint right underneath it. At that point, we were ready to mask it up, and that's exactly where we are right now on our project. So today we're ready to paint, and we'll be demoing and reviewing Fuji's Q5 Platinum turbine system. Now this is a 5-stage turbine that features a variable speed control dial that allows you to adjust the motor speed, along with a 25-foot hose that will allow you to reach to any area. Now the best part about it is it will plug into your regular household switch right at home. Now here are some other goodies we got in our package. Our tool for taking apart our paint gun and a brush, our viscosity meter, a spray gun cleaning kit with lubricant, an extra filter, a wet film thickness gauge, and a bottle opener in case that paint job just doesn't go according to plan. Now this is a T model Fuji spray gun that is compatible with our Q5. Now you just can't use any spray gun when you're using a turbine. This one is designed to work with the whole entire system. Now since that's HVLP, that's high volume, low pressure, we'll be able to transfer more paint onto the surface with less overspray. Now this garage is pretty clean and I want to keep it that way. That's why I'm not really interested in having a big compressor and, well, overspray everywhere. With this system, we'll be able to transfer the paint right to the surface, and it's a little bit slower, so it's a little bit easier for, let's say, a beginner that is not used to a whole bunch of paint just coming out of the gun. Now, it's highly recommended to keep the turbine out of the painting area, so we'll use our 25-foot hose to carry into the painting area, and we'll lead this turbine over here. So to get started, we'll just go ahead and screw on our hose. Now that our flex hose is on, we'll put on our regular air hose. And what I like is it still has a swivel on it, so it doesn't kind of bind up and tangle up on you. I'll then extend it to my area. Then we just have a quick connect right here, and we're ready to go. Now this gun is just like any other gun, really. You got your fluid right here, okay, your adjustment, and we'll do wide open. So we'll pull that trigger right there, and we'll turn in our fluid. And once we start to get resistance or this trigger starts to move, okay, we know that's at wide open. Now our fan, we'll keep adjusted at wide open, and we can turn it just a little bit. Our air pressure will be controlled over at the turbine. So we're gonna go ahead and plug it in. Now, if you need to use an extension cord, I'm gonna suggest a thicker one that's gonna allow the unit to get the power that it needs continuously so it can function properly, rather than a thinner one. Now with a flip of a switch, we can turn it right on. We have our variable speed right here. Now the great thing about this unit is it's super quiet. I would say no louder than a vacuum cleaner, which is important when you're spraying in your home garage or even doing little small projects, whether it be car painting or furniture painting, cabinets, whatever it might be. A great unit to do all of them. Now before we start spraying, we need to look good. And if you don't look like Sub-Zero before you start spraying paint, I can't guarantee the paint job is going to come out good. This is a Luma 3 paint suit. It's pretty good. It's got pockets everywhere, and you know, it's got knee pads built in, so it's always good to stay protected. Go ahead, I'll put some gloves on and have my respirator as well. Let's talk about the paint first. Now the paint that's on this car is B92P, Nighthawk Black Pearl. Now we're gonna be spraying the roof. We're not gonna be using any sealer. Now the reason why we're not using any sealer is because we're trying to keep this as minimal as possible for in your garage at home, but I will say a sealer would have helped out tremendously. Not only would it have sealed down our primer areas, but we probably would have been able to cover our base coat in about 2 coats and maybe not the 3 or 4 that it's gonna take on this light gray primer, but nonetheless, it can be done. Now for this job, we're gonna be using Tamcoat products. Now they'll go ahead and mix up your paint according to the color code, so you can go ahead and shoot them a message or visit their website in the description, and you can get all your products for painting your car. Now this particular base coat, we're using a slow reducer. I always recommend slow for everything. The paint just lays out much smoother and your clear coat will follow. We'll now pour our paint in. So we're now ready to spray. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on, and I'm gonna set it right around this area and see if it has enough pressure. If not, I'll go ahead and adjust. Now right before we spray, we'll go ahead and take our tack rag and we'll go over the panel and make sure all contaminants or all dust has been removed from the surface. So it seems like we need to make some adjustments. The paint's coming out a little bit way too wet. I need a little bit more pressure. I'm gonna dial in my fluid a little bit. So that first coat went down, and I think there was a lot of user error and adjustability that I had on the gun. So I'll show you what I did to try to make it a little bit smoother. Now this is all flashed off, and I have a hand pad with a K1200, and since I wasn't too happy with the way that one came out, I'm gonna go ahead and just give this a light sand. In some areas where that cap just wasn't tight enough on top and it leaked. Now these are all problems that we'll all go through, but don't worry, they're all fixable. Now I will mention that don't go sanding on your base about 5 or 10 minutes after. If you want to sand on it, you know, give it some time. Give it about a good 25, 30 minutes. You want to make sure it's completely dry. Trust me, if you try to sand your base before it's ready, you're gonna get yourself into a big mess. So for my second coat, I'm making some adjustments to make that paint come out a little bit finer. What I did is I turned this up to about 7.5, so I had a little bit more air coming out. And then I dialed in my fluid almost so it's shut. I have about 1 turn out from fully shut. Then I learned I need to crease my distance just a little bit, and I think I'm gonna have a better shot of a nicer second coat. So let's go over and spray it. Now I also learned that you need to make sure that you have this cap on completely tight. It can't be just hand tight. You have to make sure it's over tight. That way you don't have any leakage like I did on the roof. So on that second coat, I think we nailed it down much better, a lot more even, and the paint was coming out much finer, not like a garden hose. Now, don't be concerned if you have some scratch marks. It's fine on black, it's not to worry. The sealer would have taken care of that. I gotta be honest, this paint covers really well. It looks like we only have 1 more coat to go. Let's allow this to flash about maybe 15 minutes in between coats, and then we'll lay on our third. So we've inspected our roof, and I can tell you that it's pretty well covered, but we're gonna do that 1 more coat. Now before we do it, this is just another tip to really help you out to get a cleaner job in your home garage. So we have that K1200 again, and now this time we're not sanding for individual spots, okay? We're just gonna go over the whole surface lightly. And what this is gonna do is just even out any nib or anything like that that you won't have to get once it's in the clear coat. It's gonna make it a lot easier, and trust me, your job's gonna come out so much cleaner, I can guarantee you that. I'm not looking to really dig into it, I'm just looking to go over the surface, and then I'm taking once more my microfiber towel that I use with my water-based cleaner, and I'm just going over the surface just to get up any of that residue. Now I'll do the same thing over here, going back and forth. Now, I'll be honest with you, black is pretty forgiving, okay? If you have any areas that, you know, might be a little bit questionable, once the clear hits it, it will actually look pretty good. It's the only concern really with black is your body work. If the body work is off, then, you know, you're definitely gonna see that. But yeah, once again, we'll wipe down on this side, and we're ready to spray our next coat of base. I allowed this base coat to dry for about a good 30 to 40 minutes. I did some things around the house, and I think it's ready to go. If we don't allow it to dry, then what happens is those solvents will come up while you're still clearing, and it'll leave you dieback, which is a dullness of the paint or little pinholes. Now I strongly suggest you take your time and let the chemicals dry. You've waited this long between body work time and sanding and all that good stuff. Why rush it in the last hour? So we're gonna go ahead and spray some clear, but let's go ahead and take a look at what clear we have to spray. So for this job, I'm going with a speed clear, a 30-minute dry clear. And the reason why is I want this to dry before any sort of bug or contaminant lies into the clear coat after it's just been sprayed. This way it can kind of skin over, and anything that falls on it can be wiped off. Now we have two options when it comes to hardener. We can use a medium or a slow. Well, there's actually a fast as well, but I never recommend anything that's fast. So we're gonna go with the slow. It's about 80 degrees here. The only reason we really use the medium is maybe if it was around the 70 to 60 degree weather. This is going to mean that this slow is going to allow the paint to kind of smooth out and lay out much nicer. That's the reason why we're going with the slow. Now the directions call for this to be mixed 4 to 1 with about 2 to 3 coats with only 3 to 5 minute flash time in between. We're going to go ahead and mix up around 14 ounces. We might have a little bit extra. That way we don't have to run back and re-pour and mix and all that good stuff. So the way we'll do this is we'll find 4 to 1 on the cup, and then we'll decide how much we want. So we're going to bring it up to the first 6, and then for the next additive, which will be the hardener, we'll bring it up to the next 6. That's where the 1 comes into play. Now this is actually reversed, so you can read it from the inside while pouring. So we'll start off by just using our tack rag over the surface, and we can see it's really nice and smooth as I show you in other videos. A good way to kind of find out if you're ready for clear is to see how well this tack rag glides along the surface. Now I really want you to check out how there's not any overspray, barely, in this home garage. Okay, so we just finished spraying that third coat of clear and we put it on pretty nice, pretty thick. And I gotta tell you, I don't think there's really any dirt in this paint job. It's super slick. This is amazing clear. And you're telling me it's gonna be dry in 30 minutes? Let's check out if it dies back. We're gonna set a timer in 30 minutes. We're gonna come back and see how she looks. Hey Siri, set timer for 30 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes and counting.
And that looks like that is it. Let's see what happens in 30 minutes, okay? We're coming here. It is still fingerprinting, so it's not completely dry, but it's definitely out of dust, and that's all we're really worried about. And what that means is we can fully open up our garage, and we don't have to worry about dirt or dust getting all over our paint job, because now we can just wipe it right off. Now we got our gun all broken down. Now one reason I think we didn't atomize as well as we wanted to is because we were using a 1.3. Now this is a 1.0 tip. It's also available in a 0.8. Now with a turbine, you're going to want to make that fluid tip a little bit smaller. That way it's forcing the air to atomize, finer droplets, smoother finish, less of a film build. So we'll go ahead and give this a try on our next project on this Honda Project Civic. Wow, that roof is looking really good, and we're right where we started just a few days ago. We allowed that clear to dry for a couple days, and then we gave it a light wet sand and buff. Now you might be asking yourself, Brian, do I need to wet sand and buff any of my paint work? Well, that really depends on how well it came out and of course your expectations. Now any job even done in a paint booth is gonna have a little dirt here or there, or maybe orange peel if you just didn't lay it down perfectly. Well, in our case, we had some scattered dirt nibs from place to place, and we had small shrinkage of the clear since we did use a bigger tip than I should have. But that wasn't a problem because we used our K-Series K2000 hand sheet to go ahead and fix that up. Now, I will say if you're doing it by hand, it might take a little bit longer, and well, the sand scratch will be a little bit more harsher than you would if you were doing it with a DA. But sticking with the garage theme and trying to do everything by hand, well, that's just what we did. So we went ahead and used our K-Series block with that K2000 sheet. Now you can use this dry, but I decided to use a little bit of water to help things move along. Now this is the most important part of the phase because we're leveling off that clear or any imperfection. Now I chose to start with a 2000 grit just because I feel like it is a good grit that's not too harsh but will still cut. Now if you have any thick orange peel or something you want to level down, you might want to start with a 1200 to 1500 but still work up to that 2000. Now once that 2000 was all done, it will look a little bit dull. Then we took our K-Series K3000 sheet and put it on that same block. Now the reason why we're going to do a 3000 is because that is going to refine the 2000 grit just a little bit more and make it easier to buff. We want that scratch as small as possible so when the buffer hits it, we're not there all day and it doesn't shrink back on us in days to come. Now once we were all done with our 3000, it had a nice beautiful even sheen, almost like a mirror or semi. And we took our step one, or we used in our case the Polex compound and polish all in one. We paired that up with a 3M foam pad and a Milwaukee rotary buffer. Now I will say you need to do this with machine because you're going to need to create the friction from the actual pad. So that means you want to move in a slow manner across the panel to build up the heat on the panel and work that compound in. Now with this combination, that will shine up and pull out those scratches from the surface. Now keep in mind that you're going to need to go over the compound stage a few times in order to move on to the polish. I know I strongly suggest that you make sure that all your scratches are completely removed before moving on. Now since our car is black, we decided that we want to carry it a little bit further, so we moved on to a step two, a 3M polish. that would help us increase that shine just a little bit more. Now from here we polished it in and we slicked it out just a little bit further, and well, we want to take it one more step from here. So then we went ahead with our step 3 from 3M, our ultra fine machine polish, to make sure that we don't have any swirls. We kind of worked that in from side to side, still going just as slow. And the end result is just what we have right here, a beautiful shine that you'll see in just a moment. So I hope you learned a lot from this video. Now, a couple quick questions I know that you might have in the future. As far as that turbine is concerned, that turbine is limited just for painting purposes only. If you want to have air tools, you'll need to get yourself a compressor. Well, how big of a compressor do I need? Well, you should have at least 60 to 80 gallon compressor if you're serious about painting. If you get yourself a 30-gallon compressor, that compressor is going to keep on running. That will create moisture in your air lines, and it's going to spit water right onto your panel. Now, yeah, you can get away with it if you're just doing panel by panel, but of course, I can only recommend what I would suggest is going to get you a good job in the end. So that's going to finish it on this project, and can you believe we did this in our home garage? I'd love to see and hear what you guys have been going on in your home garage. But until the next time, guys, this is Brian from Paint Society reminding you, don't overthink it. It's just paint. Let's check out that roof.